The points that they put out in their documentation were areas of the chemical and biological production facilities and storage facilities that they bombed, as well as potential exposure hazards and downwind hazards. They marked them very specifically and extremely accurately. This would show, in my own coinage, exposures at a glance. It's a graphic representation, a real no-brainer to show the proximity of the troops to the storage and production facilities that were bombed. It proves beyond a shadow of a doubt that downwind hazards existed in profusion and would have presented such an overwhelming downwind hazard that DoD should have known better than to initiate such an action. This map is the one that I put together. The points on here are clearly marked and color-coded. There's 59 separate points on here. This shows in white the troop emplacements in Saudi Arabia prior to the actual war, the ground war. The blue is where we moved into Iraq after the ground war was initiated. The green is the biological production and storage facilities that we bombed. The yellow is the chemical production and storage facilities we bombed during the coalition air campaign. The pink one in the middle is the Qamishiyya bunker, bunker number 73 in the Qamishiyya complex. The red is a very interesting problem for the Department of Defense. These 12 red dots show where Saddam Hussein attacked his own people from the 2nd to the 26th of March 1991 using chemical agents and deploying those chemical agents from the helicopters that we foolishly let him keep. We allowed him to kill his own people, and considering that our people were within eyesight distance of these cities and were able to watch these helicopters fly over and spray these people, that was a downwind hazard. These agents were released high in the air in whole content, no burning or anything like that. It was a downwind hazard that our troops were exposed to directly. The Department of Defense also noted in one of their own documents that the Joint Interrogation Facility at Hafr al-Batin and the 410th Evac Hospital in the same area received casualties from these cities without warning the individuals that were going to be treating these people that they could potentially be contaminated with chemical agents. They were brought in by buses from the front lines up in Iraq. They were taken to these facilities. The DoD investigators looked these people over, verified where the attacks had occurred, wrote down the grid coordinates, type of agent that was used, amount of people that were killed, every last bit of detail, but did absolutely nothing to warn these people that they were being cross-contaminated by these Iraqis.
Senator Regal's 2-year study disclosed information pertaining to the 12 biological, 18 chemical, and 4 nuclear facilities within Iraq that were destroyed by coalition forces. After the attacks, atmospheric currents transported malignant airborne debris to the vicinity of Allied troops. This is documented in U.S. satellite photos.
We had contaminated everybody in theater to some extent or another. The reasoning behind that is the dust that was surrounding the facilities that we bombed during the coalition air campaign was of a type, size, and composition that's perfect to manufacture a thing called dusty agents. All you'd have to do is literally bring the chemical agent into contact physically with the dust that's in the area naturally existing, and the dust would allow the chemical to go into the crenellations, into it, and carry it on the wind. Sarin, a nerve agent, which normally would last in a desert environment for 30 minutes to maybe an hour at the most in its natural form, when it's adhered to this dust, would last a few weeks. Its persistency would be so increased that it would be able to travel on the wind all the way down to Saudi Arabia. It would contaminate the troops downwind. Any modeling that the Department of Defense and CIA has done to date did not include that vital factor.
We've had a couple chemical alarm scares where we've had to put on our mask and our full chemical suit, and they all happen to be false alarms. There's little trace chemical in the air, but we think it's because the plants have been blown up in Iraq and the air is filtering this way. They say it's not enough to hurt you, though.
DOD knew all the way back to 1988 with this report that dusty agents would penetrate our chemical suits in such profusion under such low wind conditions as to make our chemical suits totally and utterly useless. They still deployed us with this equipment. That, to me, is criminal negligence. This shows a window of vulnerability to our chemical suits. This window of vulnerability in size, composition, and type matches exactly the type of dust that Saudi Arabia, Iraq, Iran, and Kuwait contains naturally, which means when we blew up those facilities, anybody that would have been in the path of a downwind lethal concentration would not have survived even in a brand new out-of-the-package chemical suit.
Now, when you think about the amount of money that the Reagan administration poured into the Pentagon in the 1980s, you would think that we would have gas masks that work, but we don't, and that's a big vulnerability.
March 3rd, 1991, the Army Central Command, 7th Corps, and Central Command itself, under General Schwarzkopf, were all notified that POC David Allen Fisher had become a chemical agent, blister agent, casualty. They examined him thoroughly. They did urinalysis, they did skin tests, they did everything that they were supposed to do to verify that this person had come in contact with a chemical agent. They stated as much in their documentation. The statement by General Schwarzkopf on the 3rd of March 1991, upon being told that this had occurred, essentially said, okay, if anybody asks, we'll admit to it that it did happen, but we're going to try and downplay it in the media, and we're going to not make a big deal out of this. What should have occurred at that time was a full-blown message going to every individual going near a bunker should have been informed. We have a hot zone capability here. We need to protect our troops first. That should have been the first priority because it's after the entire war is over. It's a ceasefire action. No casualties should have occurred during that time frame. This is absolutely inexcusable. This is what I consider they dropped the ball. Schwarzkopf, all the people that were over there, they had total and complete knowledge that this was going on, yet they let it happen. Even after Fisher had gone into the bunker, they still could have protected other people.
Normally our programs have very positive and upbeat endings, where you see an alternative treatment with people having been successfully overcoming AIDS and cancer and arthritis and pain. Not this one. This one still has more to go. We still haven't uncovered all the facts. I'm Gary Null. Join me next week as we continue our program in our search for the truth about Gulf War syndrome.